Hey guys, and welcome back to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys, obviously, about, part three. We're going to talk to you guys about why do we argue and talking about the action of not listening to a partner. Guys, if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads, and for those of you who are returnees, well, you already know the model, baby. You got the minerals, you got the minerals. Alright, cool. So, part one, we spoke about why do we argue, and in part two, we spoke about how to resolve those conflicts when it comes to implied meaning or to implied meaning towards action or behavior. In part three, we're now going to talk to you guys about why do we argue, but dealing with the non-listening aspect. So when arguments ensue, oftentimes they can ensue because people are not listening. And that's a very big thing because, you know, listening is quintessential to developing any relationship in any field, whether it's romantic, whether it's a business deal, whether it's with colleagues, whether it's with friends or family. But listening is a skill that is needed and essential in order to communicate and be able to relate to others in this world. All right. So the word listen is to hear with intention, to pay attention, and to understand the sound. And I think this is very quintessential coming from even a biblical point of view. It says, that without love, I am just a clanging cymbal. Okay. That every sound has a distinction to it. It's distinguished. All right. And so you must understand that when we speak, there must be an understanding. So the Bible says, open the eyes of their understanding. You can hear, or you can hear. But listening is about being able to decipher and discern what's being said. And so at a point, a very wise man said, listen, let those who hear, hear. You know what I'm saying? Let those who hear, hear. It means that when you hear, there comes another hearing, which is the understanding of what you're hearing. If you speak French to me, I won't understand. But if you speak English to me, I will understand. So though I hear your French, I cannot discern nor decipher your French. But if you speak English to me, I can hear the English and I can discern the English. And this is where relationships oftentimes break down. We're speaking the same language. We're just not able to discern the sound that you're making. And I think that's very important when we're dealing with relationships. What sound are they making? What are they actually saying? And I always say this to you guys as well. If you cannot reiterate, you cannot repeat to me back what I've said to you in terms of what my point was, one or two things. Either I wasn't clear in my definition and my explanation to you, or two, the fault is on your end and you weren't listening to me in the first place. Oftentimes it's point number two. The person isn't listening to the other person. They're listening to respond. And that's where arguments often happen. Because when you listen to respond, you've missed the point completely. All right? So, let's just talk about the reasons why people don't listen very well. All right? And one of the reasons why people don't listen very well is because they feel they are in the right already. They feel righteous already. They feel exonerated already. And so therefore, their position is one of pride. I already know it. I already know what you're going to say. I already have it on lock what you're going to say. I already know. And so at that point, the listening stops because all they can think about is that they already know what you're going to say and are anticipating what you're going to say, but don't actually get to the grips of what you actually said. Why? Because they weren't listening. Second thing is obviously that having an overbearing emotional reaction at the time. Having too much emotion at the time can be overwhelming and can stop you from actually hearing what you're hearing. And actually it can change the perspective of the sound that you're hearing because you're now going through, and I will say guys, don't live in your emotion, but explore it. Ask questions. Exploring is about questioning it. So it's okay to have emotions, but are you questioning why you have those emotions at that time? But if you live in it, you don't question it, you just act in it. And unfortunately, when you act in it, it tends to be an overwhelming act, and therefore you stop listening to the person who's speaking. You can't discern the what? Sound. All right? Point number three is you often have a position of wanting to win the argument. When you want to win the argument, you will inevitably, you will end up trying to score points. Okay, this is not a football match. This is not a rugby game. This isn't tennis. Okay, it's not no point and love. No, it is a relationship which requires us both to resolve problems when they come at hand. Be a problem solver, not a goal scorer. Okay, the Bible says that the love counts no wrongs. It doesn't tot these wrongs up. Okay, we're not trying to score goals against one another. What we're trying to do is build an empire, which is our relationship, and have a strong foundation. And so, oftentimes, when people come with a mindset of, I want to win this argument, I want to beat you in this argument, then what can happen is you stop listening altogether. Point number 4 is that sometimes people have a low estimation of you. Now, this is probably not a healthy relationship if someone has a low estimation of you, but in any arguments, oftentimes there can be this sense of, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I know more than you. You know, you're not on my radar. You're not on my level. How are we even talking? You know what I mean? And that low estimation can make somebody stop listening to you because they have an altered, altered sense of themselves. They've elevated themselves above you and consider themselves to be bigger and better. Look, sometimes parents do this to children, and arguments happen because parents think that they know it all. They think they're better than their children. I'm your parent, so this is why. But actually, you stopped listening. Had you listened, maybe you wouldn't have to say what you said. We've all been there, all right? You've done. If you're an older brother, you would have done it to your little brothers and sisters, where you've gone into this state of mind where you think you're better than them, right? Because you're the older brother, or you're the older sister, or you're the older cousin in the family, okay? And so therefore that can cause a lot of arguments, and you stop listening to that person because you believe that you're better than that person, or you are the adult in the situation, if you want to call it that. The other situation is, point number 5 is also that the person is your enemy. I mean, if you consider that person to be an enemy, and this is what we do in relationships all the time, we stop remembering that you're not my enemy, and we put that person who we love as our enemy, and therefore we then argue from a standpoint of as if I'm arguing with somebody who I'm debating against, who holds a completely different view to me. The objective is exactly the same. We want the same things. We want a healthy relationship. This isn't a debate where we're trying to establish policies for the government. This isn't a debate to establish true and false narratives. We're trying to understand one another to get to the same destination. We want to love one another, okay? We want to care for one another. We want that same appreciation on both ends. And unfortunately, what's happening here is that I've seen you as an enemy, and therefore I stop listening to you, because all I'm going to do is listen to what? Respond. Some people are just not good with arguments. They're not good with a disagreement. And at that moment, it's fight or flight. And for them, the fight could be that they react and say something sharp and stop listening. Or the other person could say, okay, fine, I'll do whatever you want to do. I'll do whatever you want me to do. That's fine. I don't want to argue about this. That also is a negative response. You have to be able to... Look, relationships will require some level where you will talk and disagree. You have different points of view. You are a human being. You are an individual. The Bible says two shall become one. Okay, he lets us know two shall become one. But as you're becoming one, you are having to... There's attrition there. You're having to learn how to rub up against one another and come to the same mindset. The Bible lets us know that he's conforming us to the image of the Son. It's not free. That conforming is a process and a journey. And so is your relationship. It's a process and a journey to get you to the place where you're actually able to both see each other, okay, as trying to help get us to our destination. So fight or flight mode can cause people to run away from arguments and just give in, or some people to really put their dukes up and fight the cause and also not listen as well. And the final point on that is that people hate argument. People hate arguments and think that they're completely unhealthy, and that deals with the flight mode as well. But understand this about your relationship: that when you don't listen, okay, in a relationship. Because obviously you feel like obviously you don't want to be here in that kind of space because you're playing fragile. You don't help anybody. Your silence, okay, doesn't help anybody because that's not how you feel. So in relationships, listening is a quintessential skill to making this relationship work. To help him build the boat helping to build a raft and a boat to cross the waters, to help him build empires up to to how many floors you want. It requires for communication and conversation. Okay, so the reason why arguments really happen in relationships is because, as we mentioned earlier on, is that there's no listening that's happening. So what we're going to do is, in part 4, we're going to deal with why actual arguments actually take place, and then how to resolve those things. Because I think that's very important. How do we resolve the non-listening aspect of a relationship? Okay, so guys, tune in for that part. I hope you liked what we spoke about today. Please comment down below, let us know your thoughts, and we're going to get into it in part 4. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads, and you got the minerals, baby. You got the minerals, you got the minerals. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man. But the conversations need to happen. Like, you have to tell your wife or your husband what it is you like. Alright, let's say you're a virgin, you might not know what you like, but from the beginning you start, once you're involved in contest, you should have an idea, do you know what I mean, of what you like, and you have to communicate that to your husband, to your wife, try new things, experiment, all that sort of stuff.
You know what I've even found though, yeah? Or I've heard, yeah? Like,
he's experienced.
No, it's not experience. This is because what
trust me, these times.
You know what I heard? No. This is real life stories.